Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am joined today by my brother, Brent, the Gritty Broman. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you.
All right. Well, good. It's been a while since we've been in studio, a week or two. Been busy making movies and traveling. We went to Ryan Lamper's Western Hunting Summit, which was a good time. I got a couple podcasts in.
It was a good time. That's how you want to describe it?
Yeah, it was awesome. I learned a lot, and I was there with, did a podcast with Brian Barney on spot and stock elk hunting. So if you missed that, go back and check that episode out. And then we just published one with Mark Livesey on his e-scouting platform.
That one's good. I'm going to get that and check that out.
Everyone should.
You should totally.
Absolutely, and you should use the code GRITTY when you buy it. Get a discount, help us out. But the course is worth every penny. And then
scouting is something that I know I will nerd out on.
Yeah.
And I've kind of held back from learning about it because I'm busy.
Well, and there's no comprehensive course on it.
No.
And you have all these disjointed systems that really, when put together, provides a killer system for, because there's no one app or one tool that gets you
very true.
What
even
you need.
OnX. And OnX doesn't teach you how to do a lot of things.
Yeah, but there's also no real course for Google Earth.
None.
And the things that Mark has figured out that Google Earth can do, I didn't even know you could do those things. And so they're all built into the course in a very comprehensive way that really teach you. So
I was real excited because for me personally, I'm a self-learner. Like if I want to learn about something, I go and I learn about it. But I've learned throughout the years that there's no substitute for sitting down with an expert and getting to pick their brain.
Well, same with hunting. You can listen to as many podcasts as you want, but then when you go and you hunt with Ryan Lampers,
leaps and bounds,
you just learn a lot.
Yeah.
It's been cool to have. Same with others I've hunted with in the past. I've been able to hunt with some pretty remarkable people. Maybe their skills, archery, maybe it's backpacking, maybe it's the two combined, maybe it's spot and stock, maybe it's elk calling, like Corey Jacobson. I've been able to hunt with some incredible hunters, and watching them do their thing and then learning from it has been invaluable. The other thing I've learned is back to the Brian Barney podcast I did on spot and stock elk hunting. I've kind of learned over time what my skill sets are, what my interests are. I just like sneaking around. I just like spot and stock elk hunting, just like Brian has described it. This is what I did last year on my solo elk hunt when I killed my bull. I just like that calling elk. I love calling elk. Don't get me wrong. I love the vocal interaction. I love the excitement, the run and gun. But there is I feel far more capable and lethal and deadly if I just don't make a peep. I mean, elk are not that hard to sneak up on.
Yeah.
The hardest thing with elk is you got a lot of eyes and ears and noses all in one spot. So that's 30 or 40 or 50 sometimes that you got to sneak up on. And so all it takes is one nose to catch a whiff. So the hardest thing with elk to me is the wind. If you get the wind right, you can sneak up on elk. You just need a wind that doesn't swirl. You need a wind that's steady. And you give me a steady wind in my face, where it doesn't switch on me, I can get in tight and get my shot. So understanding the terrain, the wind patterns, that's really key, I think. But there's a lot more to it. Brian goes into it in the podcast we did. I really enjoyed it. So check that one out if you haven't seen it. And then today's podcast, I wanted to talk a little bit about backcountry food and meals, just to give a refresher course to folks. Brent and I were going over it yesterday because part 3 of our bear hunt series that we're on right now comes out on Sunday. We've been building some infographics for that to give people just some knowledge on what it is that, again, what gear we use. This is what food we use. What kind of nutrition we're trying to get in the backcountry. So I wanted to go over that today just briefly and kind of let you know what it is that we're, what we're doing to stay fueled, keep inflammation down, keep our energy up for, 10, 12 grueling days of serious miles and hiking with heavy packs and so on. So we're going to get into that. Before we do, I want to plug a few of our partners. Use the code GRITTY at Mountain Ops and get free shipping. If you're looking at those alpaca rafts, which have been awesome, use the code GRITTY2020 there and save as much as a couple $100 depending on which raft you get. So good discount there. And right now I'm getting ready for archery season. It's coming up here real soon. I'm using Black Eagle X Impact micro diameter shafts, and then I use the Valkyrie broadhead delivery system. And you can get a deal at Valkyrie. You get 5% off when you use the code GRITTY there. So check that out. All the codes that we have with our partners, all our affiliate codes, are in our description box below the YouTube videos that we produce, in the podcast videos. So you can always go there and kind of see what's listed there. So check that out. Valkyrie, I'm using the 200 grain Jaeger broadhead, however you say it, and on those X Impact shafts, and it's just phenomenal. So I've talked about that a lot. So check out Valkyrie there. And then we just talked about Mark Livesey and his digital e-platform, e-scouting. Check that one out as well. Again, links below. And sheep feet. We're going to talk on next podcast. We're actually going to talk about feet and basically what I do and what I've seen others do to make sure their feet can withstand days and days of hiking, that you got the right boots, right system for you. So I'm going to just tell you kind of what my system is and how I manage my feet on these major trips. So sheep feet right now, they if you haven't seen it, we did a podcast with Caleb at Sheep Feet, and it's basically an orthotic, custom orthotic built for your foot specifically. Got them in my boots right now, and I've been using them extensively. Got them in my new boots, been hiking with them, seeing how they perform, and it's pretty phenomenal. It's like taking my system that's already really good and putting it into a next level. So there's a code for that one as well. I can't remember what it is, Brent. You know what it is with Sheep Feet. Is it just GRITTY?
I'm pretty sure it's just GRITTY. Just
GRITTY. Use the code GRITTY at Sissy Sticks and get a deal there. And we're going to do a hike, Ryan and I. We got the Total Archery Challenge coming up here on July 18th in Big Sky, and another one in Utah the weekend of July 24th. And Lampers and I are going to do a little hike. So I think we've capped the entries at like 40 people. If you want to come join us, we're going to put the link in our description field here, probably put it on social and invite people to come along. But you can sign up to those two hikes. It's going to be like a Saturday at 4:00, I think, the weekend of the Montana Big Sky Total Archery Challenge. So if you're in town, you want to join us, you can sign up. It'll probably sell out pretty quick. We just we're going to do it and go on a hike anyway. And so we're like, hey, let's invite some people. So check that out. Like I said, we'll put the links in. We're kind of setting up the event right now in Utah still, and Big Sky. We kind of have it figured out, but we'll get you the details coming up. And when you do that, you get if you don't already have a pair of Sissy Sticks, you're going to get a great deal on those if you sign up, and you can get a pair for great price. All right, so let's talk about backcountry meals, backcountry food. And Brent put a little graphic together the other day that kind of went through the food that just a day's worth of food that I am having in the backcountry. All right, when it comes to food, I kind of want a blend of all the macronutrients I need, between carbohydrates, protein, and fats. Everybody's a little different. Like what the food you like to eat in addition to the food you process well, you kind of want to bring that whole package with you on your hunt. Now, somebody the other day was telling us that every time they hit the mountains, they get diarrhea.
No, it becomes peanut butter.
Oh, peanut butter. Mm-hmm. So the deal is this, like if you're
I'd almost rather have diarrhea.
If you're eating healthy at home and you're just taking the same foods you eat at home basically with you into the mountains, you're good.
That's heavy though. That's 10 days worth of food. That's going to be like 40 pounds.
No, you dehydrate it all. So we're going to get into that. All right. So let me just walk you through a list of what I like to bring. This is Brian Call, what Brian Call likes to bring. All right, I like perfect bars. Peanut butter is my favorite, and I like to have one or two on every day. And sometimes, though, I'll get them at Costco often if I don't buy them direct. And the Costco comes with the chocolate and the almond peanut perfect bars. I'll bring those, but if I could, I'd have peanut butter every time. And then if I do get the chocolate, I like to get Justin's honey butter, the little pouches, the packable ones, and drizzle that on top of the chocolate so it's still chocolate peanut butter. I also like the peanut butter ones with the chocolate chips. Those those peanut butter bars are good too, or those perfect bars are good too. So I'm a big fan of perfect bars. They're expensive, but I like them. So I bring a couple of those. I bring 2 Packaroons, typically vanilla. Is it vanilla?
The orange
bean?
vanilla.
I like the orange, and then I like the plain vanilla.
Plain vanilla.
Just the vanilla. So there's the orange vanilla, and then there's like the plain vanilla, something like that. Ryan loves the espresso or something. The truth is, they're all good. They're all good. Even the lavender ones and stuff. They're just
the lavender one. I was like, oh, this is like
it's like ladies' perfume.
I'm kind of hippie. I'm a little adventurous.
Yeah,
but there are legit chunks of lavender in there.
Yes,
I was
there are.
not expecting that.
Yeah,
she doesn't use oil. She uses real lavender.
Yeah, like herbs and stuff. And lavender, I think it's just a weed or a flower. I'm not sure.
It's a flower.
Anyway, so I like the Packaroons, which, by the way, use the code GRITTY at Heather's Choice, and you save there.
On your entire purchase, not just Packaroons.
Yeah, everything you buy there. You get 15% off, I believe. The other one is I pack Heather's Choice breakfast. Ryan and I both like the banana nutmeg. We also like the strawberry vanilla, and we both like the blueberry.
So it is first and foremost, it is banana nutmeg. I have it on record.
For Ryan, yeah. I like them all, man. I kind of like to mix them up.
But not your dinner.
No. So Ryan mixes up the dinner. He does all the dinners. Look, I don't do spice. I don't do spice well. Like, not that the flavor is bad. It's that the system cannot process a pepper. Like, if I eat anything that has like a chili in it or anything, or too hot a pepper, any pepper, then it's instant bowel problems and it's diarrhea.
I have about a tablespoon of cayenne to my eggs every morning.
Yeah, if I do any spice whatsoever, it'll dump out in the form of diarrhea, like almost within the hour. Like
Wow.
it'll just wreck everything.
That's almost impressive.
Yeah. I don't handle spice or acidic stuff well at all. I handle milk and dairy like a champ. Like, you give me as much alkaline type foods.
Tomatoes, lemons.
Bad.
Really?
Oh yeah. All acidic and spicy stuff is problematic. So if I eat a lot of cheese, if I can put a lot of sour cream on something that has a little spice to it,
congeal the spices
I think I just need to counter the acidic impact of the spices.
That makes sense.
Nightshades, tomatoes, all that kind of stuff gives me a little trouble. But so if I do eat something that has a little spice to it, I drink milk or I have some dairy that goes along with it, and I have no problem whatsoever. Dairy does nothing to me as far as I can tell.
Really?
Negative. Doesn't make me phlegmy. It doesn't cause any inflammation. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. There's no lactose intolerance or anything like that. So that's unique to me, right? Like, other people might be the opposite. Like Anthony, if he has any dairy at all, life is over. Like, it's just, we're all going to pay. We're all going to pay. So back to the dinners, I like the salmon chowder that Heather makes. We've heard through the grapevine looking at shepherd's pie, which I've requested without spice. There's definitely some more meals on the horizon that she's coming out with, but Sly James, he likes the spicy stuff, the chicken mole. loves it.
Guacamole.
Dark chocolate chili, Ryan eats that. There's a bunch of stuff. If you like spicy or exotic, Heather's got you covered. But the salmon chowder is legit. And then when I don't bring Heather a Heather meal, which I'd say I have a salmon chowder every other day, maybe. The other days I bring my own food, and my favorite is quinoa and chicken. So Suzanne will make quinoa, a bunch of quinoa and a bunch of chicken, and then she'll do squash and some other things too. And she'll make like a sort of just this pile of quinoa with teriyaki kind of chicken and with some veggie on the side.
That sounds good.
And it'll be like a meal that we would normally eat at home, the exact same meal. And then what I'll do is I take that meal and I spread it out on a dehydrator tray, a portion, just like what I'd put on my plate for dinner that night. I take that same portion and I put it on a tray and I dehydrate it. And then I throw it in a Mylar bag. And then when I bring it with me to the mountains, all I do is I take my Minimo, Jetboil Minimo, and that's an important part of this process is to use the Minimo because it has the micro adjustment valve.
Yeah.
So you can really simmer. A lot of the backpacking stoves,
they're on or off.
They're on or off. They're like a torch, blowtorch, or they're off. You can't fine tune them. And you turn them when you try to fine tune them, they shut off. They just go out, or it's like all on. So with the micro adjust valve on the Minimo, that Jetboil Minimo wins when it comes to the micro adjustments. It's better than all the other stove makers out there. And I think it conserves fuel better than the rest. But you barely just simmer that thing. Get the water. You could get your water boiling and then turn it down so it's just a simmer. Dump your homemade meal from home in there, and you just lightly stir it, and that heat just rehydrates that food. Boom, quick. And it's a lot more efficient than dumping it into a bag and then sealing it. Because sometimes when you rehydrate some meals, they don't really rehydrate that well. Like you have to have the water scalding hot, dump in the bag, seal it, and wait a good 20 minutes or so. And even then, you'll have crunchy bits in there sometimes. So even with the Heather's Choice, you can dump that in and simmer it right in your pot, right in your Minimo, same way, and it's done in a couple of minutes. So having the heat stay constant at a high level just helps that food rehydrate very, very quickly.
I also just hate eating out of those bags.
Yeah, I think with a Sea to Summit long spoon, it's not bad at all. In fact, I hate having a short spoon. Period. Like that Sea to Summit long spoon, and I'd even take it longer. Like we're looking at some, but I love that spoon makes eating enjoyable. But the other thing with the Minimo is the pot is short. It's not narrow and tall like your typical Jetboil that's just for boiling water. It's wide and short, so you can easily cook your foods in there, get to it. It's more for cooking than it is just boiling water. So that's what I also bring. I also bring, sometimes my wife gets rice noodles and creates a chicken
homemade ramen thing, isn't it?
Homemade ramen, like chicken bouillon cubes.
How does she make that bouillon cube?
Well, she takes like some different bone broth and bouillon stuff, and then she adds like a whole bunch of dried scallions and different greens and stuff to it, like carrot slivers and just whatever. And then you just accent your noodles with that, with some dried chicken, and you have sort of a oriental chicken noodle kind of meal, right? So I'll have that. And anything you like at home, you can dehydrate. I found that burger doesn't rehydrate as well as chicken. It doesn't quite rehydrate, or it just doesn't have the same tastiness. It's still good. You know, I've taken chili. I think sweet potatoes, rehydrated sweet potatoes and quinoa or white rice. Those are my 3 favorite carb bases. My favorite is definitely sweet potato. like a mashed sweet potato or just sweet potato squares with chicken. But quinoa is really easy to rehydrate and it tastes great. It's really not that hard. You make it at home, dehydrate it, and then test it and see how well it tastes once it's rehydrated. Some meals you can't even tell really that it was dehydrated and rehydrated. They just, boom, it just swells right up and you have a great meal.
That's kind of the goal.
Sometimes though, it's like, oh yeah, this is dehydrated and you're trying to rehydrate it. It just doesn't want to. And it's still tasty. It just has a different texture, but it's still tasty.
Like peas.
So you just gotta, mess around with it and, see what works for you. A lot of guys love their sort of lasagna, spaghetti type meals. Again, I don't do tomato sauce. Really, I don't do that kind of acidic meal. I don't like them. I don't deal with them well. Mm-hmm. But a lot of guys love tomato-based, like spaghetti type meals, stroganoff, so it's really easy and you just dehydrate your own stuff. So you don't have to do like a store-bought meal, but I do love my Heather's Choice salmon chowder and then my own meals intermixed. The other thing is that I bring is dehydrated apples. So I have found that I love dehydrated apples. My favorite apples are Honeycrisp. And when apples are good and they're in season and they have that perfect flavor to them, usually in the fall, man, take them then, cut them up, dehydrate them. If you got a freeze dry machine, which we're looking into, that's even better because you don't lose any nutritional value month over month, year over year once you've freeze dried it. Dehydration, I think you got about a year, 8 months to a year, and then your food kind of can lose a lot of its nutritional value.
It starts to lose it, but I think you still have a little window even after that.
Yeah.
Before that 8-month mark, I have to go try to eat it.
You try to get it done, which is kind of a pain in the butt because if you freeze dry it, it's like you can just keep building stores and stores and stores of backcountry food forever. I never get tired. So typically what I do is I cut up an apple and I cut up a banana and I keep them in piles organized on the tray because you don't want to lose track.
You won't eat just the right amount of banana.
Yes, because here's the thing. It's so easy once it's dehydrated. You could eat 50 bananas. Just chomp them because they taste like candy and they're so good.
And then you take a swig of water.
And then your bowels are in trouble because you would never eat 6 bananas all at once. Mm-hmm. It does things to you.
So I saw when I was making that infograph the other day for the video, I saw a picture of a whole banana that was dehydrated. Mm-hmm. And it looked like just a poop log.
Yeah.
It did not look good. It really unsettled me. But a part of me wants to try it.
It would be pretty handy. I think it will just take a long time to dehydrate.
A very long time.
Because when you cut it into thin slices and you lay it out on a tray, based on how thick or thin I cut the slices of the banana is how long the...
And the process for a sliced banana still takes quite some time. A whole banana, I feel like that might take like a day or two.
Take a while. So I got the apples, I got bananas. So I like to have 1 or 2 servings. I like to have 2 sets of apples lately because it tastes like candy, but it's fiber, it's sugar, it's carbs, it's got a little of everything. It's natural. I like to take the peel off myself. Suzanne leaves the peel on. I like not having the peel on.
Why?
I don't know. It gets stuck in your teeth sometimes. So I prefer not to have the skin on, but, so I'll just skin them and then I'll jump them on the tray, dehydrate them. And then each apple goes in its own Ziploc. And then I'll have 2 apples and a banana or 2 bananas and 1 apple per day, usually. Something in that ballpark.
Now, have you tried other fruits or do you specifically stick with these ones for any particular reason or you just like them?
They're easy. They're cheap. And they dehydrate well and they taste great on the mountain. But the other one is... the apple is good, the peanut butter, but Ryan did dried honeydew.
I would say he did some cantaloupe, didn't he?
No, I think it was just cantaloupe and honeydew melons, and those were good. Those are tasty. And then I did mangoes, and after I did mangoes, Ryan started doing mangoes. They're good. Mangoes are great too, and you just do them on your own. Like with the mangoes, if they're a little tart, I'll drizzle honey on them before I dehydrate them. And so then they got a little sweet to go with the tart, and they're pretty dang good.
My mother-in-law has a dehydrator, and she'll get mangoes. It's the only thing she dehydrates. She'll slice them super thin. She'll put them in a Ziploc bag with honey, and that's like this Mexican fruit powder stuff that you put on stuff. And then she puts it in a Ziploc bag and mashes them all around, so it's covered in honey and the spices and stuff. It's pretty good.
Gotcha. Yeah, you can mess around with it. It's real good. So some of that dried fruit, and then I always bring a fruit leather, which consists of basically half of an apple and half of a sweet potato, or it'll be a full apple and one full sweet potato. Typically, I try to keep it into a serving, but basically, you take one apple to one sweet potato and blend them together. So Suzanne makes a lot of applesauce. So I'll just take a cup of applesauce, which is like an apple, a serving of one apple. Take that applesauce and I'll mix it with a cooked sweet potato, blend it up in the blender, and then I'll lay it out on I don't know what they are. They're like some sort of
They're a silicone mat.
Silicone mat, yeah. And lay them out on that, and boom, dehydrate them, and then roll them up with on like wax paper, I think it is.
Yeah.
Suzanne does it all for me, so thank you, honey. But that's what I'll have. I'll have that sort of mixture, roll it all up, and bring it with me. And so I kind of like Lambers loves his fruit leathers, loves them. I like them. He sprinkles a little nutmeg in them sometimes, or cinnamon, a little sugar or something. I like the fruit leathers, but I almost prefer straight up apples and bananas dried
To the fruit leather?
to the fruit leathers. Just, I love the bananas. I freaking love dried
I experimented
bananas.
with making fruit leathers last year, and my fruit leathers did not turn out well. My dehydrator is one of those tower dehydrators, and it doesn't disperse the heat well enough. So the center of it was like kind of baked, and the middle was done right.
You gotta have
the far end was raw.
I think Ryan and I have the same dehydrator. It's a Excalibur 300.
Yeah, I need to get
Something
one of
like
those.
that.
But I made fruit roll-ups out of my kombucha scobies last year, and those turned out those were like store-bought fruit roll-ups is what they tasted like.
Yeah, Suzanne likes to make it out of yogurt and some other stuff too. But it's hard to beat just your apple mixed with your sweet potato. I do feel like the sweet potato gives you some really great carbs. You're talking about eating a sweet potato on the mountain. It's got all these good nutrients in it, plus the carbohydrate that you need. And it just tastes great. So
Ryan just made a post on his Instagram. Did you see him do that? He grabs his big ladle that's full of the pre-mixed stuff, pours it onto that
silicone mat,
and then he picks it up and he just lovingly spins this thing. And it's pretty cool to watch him. He looks like someone who's done it a lot.
Yeah.
And he makes this perfect circle and he's just shifting it back and forth.
Yeah.
I was impressed with how like perfectly circular he got it.
Mine is that when I put it on the tray, it's not that. It's typically a little pastier though. It doesn't really want to roll around much. But when I eat his and eat mine, they're kind of the same. Like I can't tell a big difference. Then the other thing is jerky, homemade jerky. I don't buy jerky, man. I got so much meat in the freezer. I used to make jerky just sort of willy-nilly, grab some meat, cut it up. But I've found that I really enjoy jerky made out of the back straps.
Really?
Or some good cuts that are tender. Something that doesn't have a lot of sinew in it or anything else. It's enjoyable. I love jerky. So I'll take the jerky, I'll cross cut it because I don't want to get it stuck in my teeth and everything. When you long cut it, it's just really chewy and I don't care for it. So I'll cross cut it, and then I use one of those. I got it at Cabela's, a meat cutter, and you just toy around with it, but you cut it to a certain thickness. You just run your meat through the slicer and it just cuts it all the same thickness. So when you're making your own jerky, one of the key parts of making it well is having it all be the same thickness. So it all absorbs your marinade at the same amount, and it takes the same amount of time to dehydrate it on the dehydrator. Because what you can do, or the Traeger, if you're going to smoke it or whatever, however you're going to do it. But what happens is people will cut it too thick, real skinny. Every piece is a little different. And then some pieces are done while others aren't. And if you're not careful, I mean, you can dehydrate the heck out of your jerky, and then it's like rock hard.
It's like chips.
Yeah, it's like chips. It crunches in your mouth instead of, being like jerky.
The next time, 'cause Daisy did that with her deer from this last year.
Mm-hmm.
She tried to make some jerky in the oven, and she pretty much burnt it. And I grabbed it and I crinkled them all up into a jar. And you ever bought that jerky chew before?
Yeah.
That's what I did with it.
Well, the way I like to do it is I like to cut it, cross cut it, thin, back straps, whatever. And then when I take that, I think it's a 1 pound. I have a recipe, and it's like soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce. It's got liquid smoke. So liquid smoke is the critical ingredient. Like it is, you've got to get a recipe that uses a little liquid smoke. And then I love sesame, and I'd add it to it, except my daughter's deathly allergic to it, so we don't have any sesame in the house.
She's allergic to all the good stuff.
And it's sort of a teriyaki blend that I prefer. Like I've tweaked it just by messing around with it until I got something I really like. Now, I've also learned that I can only marinate it for about 3 or 4 hours. Any longer than that, and it just becomes way too marinated and it's super salty. So I go for 3 or 4 hours with the marinade in a Ziploc with my pound of meat. I also figured out how much marinade I need per pound of meat. If I use too much or too little, then it doesn't quite saturate the meat like I want it to. So then once it's done, I lay it out on the trays for the dehydrator, and I throw it on the dehydrator, and I run that thing for 4 hours roughly. Now, if you go too long, you're going to wreck your jerky. Or at least you can still eat it, but it's like Brent was saying, it's like powder and chips and it's not pleasant. It's not as delicious. The one thing that I like to do before I slide it into the dehydrator and dehydrate it for 4 hours, I like to drizzle every little piece in honey. So I take a little honey and drizzle every chunk with some honey. Then I slip it in the thing, and it's like a honey. My jerky is the envy of many people. Many people.
Yes.
Ryan's is too. Ryan has a few different flavors, maybe a little pepper. His has sometimes, I think it's had some like chilies or jalapenos and some things on it. But his is really good too. And I think he has some recipes up on huntharvesthealth.com. But anyway, that's how we do the jerky. And basically, I take a serving and I put one in each Ziploc bag. You can put them in Mylar bags. You can put them in a bag. If you have those little silicone packets that you dump in there, just like you buy at the store, you can preserve it longer. Typically, though, I make my jerky before I go on a hunt, like just a week or two before I go. And so it's pretty fresh, and I don't worry about keeping it, super dry with silicone packets or anything else. But if you do, there's no preservatives in this. It's just dehydrated. So when you got your meat in there, and if it is in a bag and you just store it, sometimes I'll throw it in the refrigerator for a week or two before I go, just to keep it fresh. It can get moisture in the bag if there's no silicone packets, just from condensation. And you just want to avoid that, just to keep it fresh and good. So that's the jerky. And then I bring Tillamook cheeses, the sharp cheddar and regular, whatever cheese you like, but there's those little Tillamook snack squares. I bring a couple of those and a Baby Bell, like the wax covered cheese.
Are those just mozzarella?
There's different ones. There's like a sharp cheddar, mozzarella type, but they're rich and fatty. They have the low fat or fat free-ish ones. It's like, why are you eating cheese if it's not filled with fat? That's
because people think fat makes them fat.
So I like I like those. You kind of bring your own cheeses, and I love cheese. If you can't do cheese, don't bring cheese, but I'm a cheese dude. And then I like to bring, which I get a little mocked for, I like those Smashmallow Rice Krispie things. I love those things. I love Rice Krispies. They're like sinful indulgence. And I like the mint chocolate chip ones. I like those. I also like homemade Rice Krispies with tons of butter that aren't good for me. And I have Suzanne make those sometimes. And she'll add a little mint and chocolate chip to those for me.
Yeah, those were killer.
They're so
Those are
good.
good.
They're just
Those are
like,
good.
at the end of the day, I might smash one of those on a hunt. I also like to bring Justin's peanut butter cups, those little peanut butter cups. And I don't eat those. I dump those into the banana nutmeg Heather's Choice.
Ooh.
I break them up and I dump them in there. So it's like a peanut butter chocolate banana nutmeg like meal. It's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
And then I'll sometimes I'll bring same thing. I'll bring a chocolate bar, just one. It's just dark chocolate sea salt, and I'll break that into like 3 or 4 chunks for my oatmeal, for my banana nutmeg oatmeal in the morning, or my strawberry vanilla one. I'll drop that chocolate in there, and
We should have eaten before we did this podcast.
and I just have a little chocolate with my breakfast meal. And the one thing that I tend to do actually is I don't eat breakfast in the mornings. I'm even at home. I'm not much of a breakfast guy. I haven't eaten anything today. I probably won't eat until this afternoon. I kind of fast throughout the mornings. So when I'm on the mountain, it's the same thing. I don't really eat in the morning. Around 10 o'clock, I eat a peanut butter bar. And then I don't eat anything again until about noon. And then from like noon on, I'm just eating all day. Like I'm just shoving the bananas in, all of it. And then at night, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually eat my Heather's Choice salmon chowder. And then after that, I'll also eat my Heather's Choice breakfast with the chocolate.
Back to back.
Yeah.
You turn your breakfast into dessert.
I kind of, during the day, in the mornings, I'm not that hungry. I don't like to eat in the morning. I just feel better fasting. But I tend to load a lot right as I go to bed, smash it all and go to sleep. So, but that's different for everybody. Some people perform the opposite. They don't eat when they go to bed.
My wife needs breakfast first thing in the morning, or she's a monster.
So that's so if I go over this, if I had 2 peanut butter bars, blah, 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 like the list I just gave you, then it's around 3,000 calories on the button. And the food weighs about 1.7 pounds for this. That's kind of a day's worth of food. The other thing that I like to throw in there, so what I'm saying about the chocolate, the Justin's peanut butter cups, the Rice Krispies, those are all sort of like the honey stingers. Those are all just sinful indulgences. I like to have 1 or 2 a day just to enjoy when I'm out there. But I try to keep that sort of hard sugar intake to a minimum. The other thing that I bring almost on every single trip is those shot blocks.
The Cliff Blocks?
The Cliff Blocks. And the reason I bring those, I don't always eat them. But sometimes I'll find we're like chasing an animal up a mountain and you're just burning tons and tons of sugar and energy. And what I find is, for me, I perform a little better when I smash a few of those shot blocks mid-hike or during the hike. Because I'll get a little shaky, like from like a low blood sugar kind of feeling. When I eat a couple of those, it's gone instantly.
They make hiking so much more enjoyable, especially with a heavy pack.
And I've noticed too, at times where I have an intense adrenaline rush for some reason, like I'm on a cliff in New Zealand, and instantly it's like the adrenaline comes, and even though you're trying to control it, I got so shaky I had to sit down. Well, the one thing that helps replenish that is just straight up shot blocks. So I just smash those, and in a few minutes that shakiness is gone, and
and as far as
solid.
like quickly absorbed sugar, it's tapioca syrups and stuff. It's not terrible for you.
Yeah.
Daisy and I tried to make some last year, and they turned out really well. The only problem is I like the ones with the caffeine as well.
Yeah.
If I'm going to take them, I want the caffeine.
Yeah.
I couldn't get I couldn't find a good caffeine source that wasn't crushed up caffeine pills, and they didn't make it taste so good. But just the regular ones we made were phenomenal. And they're not hard.
They're expensive to buy, although we get them at a discount. But I like the sodium ones.
Oh, the margarita mix
The margarita ones. Yep. There's something about the salt and all that, that you're depleting on these hikes. So I like that. So, which brings me to the next part of the discussion. So that's kind of the food intake and what I'm having day to day. I never get tired of any of it. I love all of it. So what's my drink mixes?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So
What's your drink system?
So I like the Liquid IV.
You buy that from Costco, right?
I like the Liquid IV, like electrolyte kind of mix. I bring some Mountain Ops electrolytes that are straight to mouth, which I think are real handy. You just dump them straight in, drink some water, especially when I'm not carrying a water bladder. I am filtering my water with a SteriPen, and I'm heading back to camp. And I don't want to have to mix a drink mix in there because I want to use it for cooking too. So it's nice to just dump an electrolyte right in your mouth and just drink a little bit. And then you still have your water that's untainted for cooking.
Especially when you're a place where like all your water is snow melt. You're basically having to melt your melt snow.
It just makes it handy so I can have a flavored sort of water in a way without having to mix it in my actual water bottle and mess it up for cooking. Otherwise, I just have to drink it straight. Nobody wants straight water. That's snow melt. So this works
especially
nice.
Because sometimes that water tastes a little funky.
So I like that. And then so those two things, and I like Mountain Ops Ignite, the travel packs. I usually have a couple of those a day. So I'll have one kind of in the morning. A lot of times I'll have one no sugar, no food in the morning. I'll just have a straight up, basically sugarless Ignite, and I'll have
a light on the system.
I'll have that caffeine and kind of that boost in the morning, but then I'll eat something later. So I like the Ignite. I like the pink lemonade. I like the Citrus Bliss. Those are kind of my go-tos. And the Lono Life bone marrow.
I ordered some of those yesterday.
Did you use the code Stealthy?
I did. It's the Healthy 10.
Stealthy 10. Okay. So you use the code Stealthy 10, you get a little discount there. But Lono Life has the bone marrow.
I'm excited.
Mixes. So they have the chicken, which is it's so good.
I bought the variety pack.
And then they have the mushroom. It's like beef and mushroom or something. And anyway, these are real good. I think they're freeze dried or dehydrated. I'm not sure, but you dump those things into your bone broth into a hot. It's just so awesome because you need the salt, and there's all the fats and the bone marrow, all the nutrition for calcium and different things that are in your bone marrow mix. And so it's hard to describe, but having
because it's got a bunch of stuff, and not just it's also got collagen in there.
Yeah, peptides,
a bunch of little minerals and stuff that you're not getting elsewhere.
So when you take those little mixes, and we have those a couple times a day. We buy and use those little, I think I got some in my bag here. Lipton, I think is what it is. Yeah, Ryan and I both use these. These True Lemon. It's this True Lemon deal. It's just a flavored drink. This one has some caffeine in it, wild blackberry and pomegranate. But no artificial flavors or sweeteners. But it's got stevia leaf extract in it to sweeten it, so it's not sugar, so it's 0 carbs. So this is nice because it flavors your water, real flavor from real fruit. It flavors your water, but it doesn't have any sugar in it. And that's the thing. Like, you really want to limit your sugar intake, not just on the mountain, but in life. The one thing about Liquid IV is they're pretty high in sugar, and there's a reason it tastes so good. But it mixed with the salt and everything that's in it, and combined with everything else I'm taking, a couple Liquid IVs a day, and then these sugarless ones here, the Mountain Ops electrolytes, these True Lemon sugarless, tends to be about right for me. The other thing I bring is I always bring, and I have these. So typically in a day, I have 2 Mountain Ops Ignites, travel packets. I have one part of the day and one later. I'll have 2 Liquid IVs in a day, and I'll have 2 Pedialyte, right? And I have 2 Mountain Ops Ignites, I'll have 2 Mountain Ops electrolytes straight to mouth, and I'll have a couple of these.
So you're taking like 10 packets of stuff every day.
Yeah. And Ryan and I joke about it. Like sometimes it feels like it wasn't enough. Like every time we bring liquid drink mixes, we always feel like I've learned from my lesson that I'd rather have too many than not enough. And toward the end of a 10-day hunt, we're looking around at each other like, you got any more drink mixes?
Can you float me a little something?
And so I used to bring less, but man, it's just you sweat so much and you need so much water and fluids, and with the exertion level that we're putting out there,
especially if you have an animal down and you're trying to hike it all out, and you have to take a couple trips, a couple of days, so it's just nonstop days of grinding.
Well, a lot of times what happens to us as well is we end up pushing our bodies so hard that you lose your appetite. And even if you eat, you're not going to digest it well. So now you're kind of having Lono Life, like you're having marrow, you're having bone marrow broth, you're having noodles. I'm eating all the apples and the leathers, and I'm eating the shot blocks, and I'm on this liquid semi-sugar diet, and I'm not eating.
I'll tell you what, there's nothing worse than hiking 5 miles, being super tired, knowing you need to eat, and trying to choke down some noodles of beef stroganoff. It's the hardest thing.
And so sometimes what I end up doing when I've overexerted is I'm switching over to mostly a bland sugar diet. Like I'm eating all the foods that are easy to digest and give me some energy in the carbohydrate department, but I'm not eating the Heather's Choice meal. And then a couple days later, we'll end up being in a situation where we're done with the night. We're not doing any night hikes. We're just posted up. We're glassing all day. And in those days, my appetite will return, and I'll eat 2 Heather's Choice, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and I just listen to my body, basically. But drink mixes, it just seems like, yeah, I'm going to have 10 or more in a day of various types. So never get tired I'm always thirsty. With salt caps, I bring a few of those, usually, just in case I feel like I've overdone it. A lot of marathon and long distance runners and stuff will use those. I'll throw those salt caps in there. And when Ryan and I just kind of overdo it a little bit, I'll eat a couple of those, and they have all sorts of things in them to replenish lost salts and electrolytes and stuff. So that's sort of your big gun if things go real south. So I will say this, that 3,000 calories a day is right on that edge for me. Like what I listed out, I can get by with every day, where I might lose a little weight depending on how long we're out there and how much hiking we're doing. But it seems like I always overdo it on some days, and I don't eat my food. And then other days I catch up. On average, I found like 3,000, 3,200 calories. I seem to do well on, although I probably should be eating more like 3,500 or 4,000. I just don't have the appetite for it. When I leave on my hunts, some of these hunts, I'm 200 pounds. When I come back, I'm 178, 180. So sometimes I'll lose 20 pounds. When I go on a hunt and I'm already around 180 pounds, I seem to stay at 180 between, plus or minus a couple of pounds on a hunt. I can't really explain it, but anyway. So on the drink mixes, I bring that Microlite bottle, GSI Microlite insulated bottle for hot or cold, keeps your stuff hot or cold all day long. And I use a SteriPen to filter that. And then we bring the Hydra Pack, water bladders, like a 3-liter. We might bring 1 or 2 depending on, the water's conditions. Usually 1 bladder is enough, but sometimes if we're going to hike to the top of a hill and be there a couple days, we need at least 2 3-liter or 2-liter like water bladders to bring with us up there. And Brent brought up this point, like what happens if you're on a 10-day hunt, but you haven't got the animal you're looking for, and you want to extend your hunt a couple more days just in case, just because you're on the verge of success. Well, we fast. We just don't eat. Typically, what we've done is, let's say it's day 8, right? and you got 9 and 10 left. And it's like, man, I don't know if we're going to be able to pull it off in the next 2 days. Then on day 9, I pretty much don't eat anything until pretty late in the day. And I only eat, a few things. And I typically just calorie restrict to maybe 500 calories for the day.
But normally by the end of those trips, don't you guys have one of you guys shot something?
Well, that's what we're banking on, is that we'll kill something,
It has something to eat.
I just try to eat as little as I can and still feel functional. Mm-hmm. I think the human body is a lot more equipped for fasting than people realize. Mm-hmm. I think it's you look at indigenous people and they would go out and not eat for a couple of days. Big deal. They just don't eat.
Yeah.
And they're fine. They're drinking water and they're doing their thing, but they just don't eat. Their bodies regulate. They burn fat. We're just so not used to not eating, but it's not uncommon for people back in those times, to just take off on a horse, do their thing for a couple of days. They didn't worry about food. If they found something great, they ate it, dug up a root, whatever. But it wasn't like they were having 3 square meals a day. What I found is when we're out there, I just don't eat and I feel pretty good. And the next day, I kind of keep it down to a minimum. It's like, no, not eating much today. I tend to drink a lot more liquids, and that's probably where the drink mixes really come into play. I'm just pounding a lot more, maybe liquid sugary, more liquid IV type stuff. But generally, I'm just kind of keeping it light. And then what happens is when it comes down to the last day, truly, like, we can't space it out another day. I have quite a bit of food for that last day or last day and a half or whatever. So day 9, day 10, I might keep it real light. And then day 11, it's like, okay, I got to start eating again. I'll eat a little more. Hopefully we get it done by then. Day 12. So day 11 and 12 in the morning, we might be completely out of food on the last day, which has happened, but we've also killed usually. I mean, we usually get something. And then we're just smashing bear meat and fried in bear fat till our bellies are so full, and the fat and the meat, it's good, man. And and we bring an excess of drink mixes. I think that helps. And then we hike on out of there. I don't know what to say. I mean, I guess it's just, we'll eat pretty darn healthy and try to eat all our food every day up until the last couple of days. And if we haven't done it, we start rationing food and stretching it, and, I know that I know I can just not eat for a day or two. I don't like the idea of eating all my food and then just kind of just getting by without it. That's why I stop eating a couple of days early and keep food in reserve. Because when you kill something and it is time to hike out, and you got a lot of miles to go, that's when I need to start eating food to keep it going with that heavy pack and all of that. And I know that at the end of the trail, there's going to be a whole ton of food there, so I just got to make it back. But, we also figure we're going to kill something too. And every time that's happened, so we can always eat what we kill. It's not a big deal. I think you get out there and I just think people don't need to worry too much about, experiment with it. Go and spend a couple of days. I think your body adjusts. Like the way that it works when your body stops getting food is it says, okay, we got to burn more fat. And it ramps up hormones inside your body to adapt to the way you're living. The first 3 or 4 or 5 days of a hunt, I'm really hungry because I'm used to 3 square meals a day. I'm used to sort of the modern city life, civilized life, right? And so I'm used to that. So the first 3 or 4 days, 5 days of a hunt, I tend to eat quite a bit of food. I mean, I tend to be hungry all the time. By 6, 7, 8, 9 days, it's like my body is adapting to a different level of activity, a different level of food intake, a different level of everything. And I really am not that as dependent on the food anymore.
Do you feel that change comes quicker for you now than it did years ago?
Yeah, but I don't know how much of that is mental or physical, right? Like, it's like now when I'm sweating and it's really hard, is it that it's easier now, or is it that I just ignore it, the pain or the discomfort?
When I did Wim Hof for that year, I was jumping in water that was 33 degrees. Like, it was ready to freeze. It just needed a little help.
Right.
If it hadn't been running water, it would have froze. And at first, the first week was hell. Doing 3 minutes for a week, hell. It hurts. It burns. And I could never figure out if it's just that I got tougher or my body got used to it. I could never figure it out. And at the end of the day, I was like, it doesn't matter. I can just do it.
That's something I wonder too. I imagine it's a combination. Your body gets tougher and you are mentally tougher. I love the idea of Wim Hof because just like I do the backcountry hunts we do, because there's no replacement in life for discipline.
Yes.
Discipline is like Jocko says, discipline equals freedom. All your success, happiness, joy, everything in life flows out of discipline. So if you can discipline yourself to get in a frozen body of water every morning and suffer, because that's what it is. Every fiber of your being is saying, get out of this water. It is the most uncomfortable, awful feeling is to plunge yourself into ice cold water.
Near the end of that year, the first 30 seconds to a minute was still, why are we doing this?
Yeah. And everything about you is like, I don't want to do this. I hate this. And it's screaming at you to get out, get out, get out, get out. Every instinct says this is wrong. The body's saying, don't do this. And then you're in it and you're fine and you get out and you have all these hormone responses and physiologic where you feel like unstoppable, strong, capable.
I was never sore that year. I could lift crazy heavy weights, go dip in the water for 15 minutes, never had a back problem, was never sore ever.
Yeah, there's something to do with inflammation. So this pain that you force yourself to endure is like medicine for the body and the mind. And it's hard, but I feel as though the hiking and stuff that I do as well, like I don't even think about it. I just go and do it. It's not miserable to me. It's just work.
I remember years ago you said something along the lines of choose your pain, because life's painful. You can choose to go to the gym and choose this is the time that I'm going to be hurting and I'm going to be in pain, so that when I'm out there and I'm doing these other things, it's not as painful. Or I'm choosing to work my butt off and be a healthy person who strives so that I don't have to have cancer or obesity in my late age. Like life is painful. And in some ways we get to choose when and where that pain comes from.
Yeah, I'd rather do it in a controlled situation, controlled environment. I want to know what I can do. And you don't know that until you put yourself in those situations to those limits to find out. And, if you go hike a mountain and each day and you do some CrossFit workouts, I know from doing CrossFit workouts over years, there were some workouts where I'm like, that's a 45-minute, 1 hour long, just
grind.
And there were workouts where 4 days a week, I'm at the gym 5 days and I'm writhing on the floor and just absolute and utter pain after the workout's over. Like I can't breathe. Every muscle is burning. I'm blacking.
In a puddle of sweat,
like I'm just like
spots,
squirming, like just trying to escape the pain, And then it's like, okay, you get up and you're shaking and you're walking to a bench. You put it all out there. Maybe it's 100-degree day and it was an hour-long grind, some crazy workout. When I do that, it let me know when I was carrying, let's say, a heavy pack in the middle of the night, I'm nowhere near that point. Like I know that I got a long way to go before I'm there. So I'm not worried about, am I going to break down? Am I going to pull this off? Can I not do this? Like those things don't even cross my mind. And that question, why am I doing this? I used to have that all the time when I was younger. Why am I doing this? That doesn't really cross my mind anymore, ever. Like I thrive on the pain. It makes me feel alive. The misery, it fulfills me. It makes me really grateful for the rest of my days. You know, the running water, the hot water, the grocery store, the ice cream. Like these things are, they have so much more meaning for me because I don't take any of it for granted. So I don't know. There's a piece that comes from the misery and the suffering, and it almost just doesn't feel like misery and suffering anymore. It just doesn't. And so I don't know. The only way to get there, I think, though, is to push through it all. Mm-hmm. You know, that's where Wim Hof is great because
it doesn't matter your fitness level at all.
If you can just make yourself do it every day, I think once you win, if you can make yourself get in a cold body of water for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, working up to 15 minutes a day or whatever you choose, and you're able to make yourself do that, it forges a discipline, and discipline begets discipline. Mm-hmm. With your ability to do that, you can make yourself do other things you hate doing.
Yeah, when I got into that body of water and I spent 15 minutes in hell and I got out of there, there was no sweet on the planet that could tempt me.
Right.
There just wasn't. I went through all of that. I'm not ruining it by eating a Snickers bar.
Years ago, there was this thing that was coming out where these studies where they were saying that willpower is finite. And once you've hit your body's capacity or your mind's capacity to have willpower, you only have so much of it. And then when it's gone,
it takes time to replenish. It's like a power gauge. It goes up and down.
You're just going to lose all that, and then you're going to indulge in cave. And I remember hearing Jocko Willink read the article on the Tim Ferriss podcast. He was a guest host while Tim was on vacation. He reads this thing, and then Jocko says, and I'm here to tell you that is all bullshit. He's like, as someone who has specialized in discipline and creating discipline in others, discipline creates more discipline. Discipline begets discipline. You don't have some finite amount that you're just like magically endowed with and then it's gone. Mm-hmm. No, discipline is something you create that you grow with more and more discipline. You can't have it without earning it. And that when you resist something, and when you make yourself do something you don't want to do, that you know you need to do or should do, and maybe it's little, like it's make your bed. Make your bed in the morning, that's it. And then it's like, okay, make your bed and stop drinking soda. You know, it's like, and every time you achieve those little things, you start to get more and more ability to have discipline and strength. And because you say no to these things that you want to indulge in, and you make yourself do things that you know you should, over time, you become a more and more disciplined and powerful person. Mm-hmm. There is no, it's such a cop out. It makes you not control of you as an individual, as a person, when you indulge in the idea that willpower is finite. That's like an excuse to say, well, it's all out of my hands. It wasn't my fault. And I couldn't stop myself because, you know, I'm predestined to not be able to stop myself.
It gives you permission to fail.
It goes against every friggin' thing I believe in and that I know to be true through my own experience. You get to have willpower when you exercise willpower. And there's no limit to it. It just takes time, effort, strength.
I got dragged to this one of those pyramid self-help schemes by a friend. And there was a speaker there, and the speaker was really good. I did not sign up for this thing, though, but he said something that was really interesting to me, that we all have systems. We have like our cardiovascular system. It's something that the more you work at your cardiovascular system, you know, you get better at it. You have an exoskeleton system, and your exoskeleton might need some vitamins and nutrients or calcium or whatnot.
We don't have an exoskeleton.
Well, no, our skeletal.
Okay, that's fine. Our skeletal,
maybe
our
you don't
internal,
have an exoskeleton. Our muscles are a system that we treat and whatnot. But we have invisible systems that we don't see because we can't necessarily feel them. Like sleeping. He's like, you have a system inside of your body that is set around sleeping,
right? And
how you take care of that, manage it, and whatnot. The better sleep you can have. And then he talked about willpower. He's like, willpower is the probably one of the most invisible systems that we have because you really can't see it. in any way, shape, or form. You can't feel it. There's no side effects that you can consciously connect to it. But he's like, when you don't have willpower, you have bad sleep. When you don't have willpower, you eat crappy. When you don't have willpower, you're overweight. When you don't have willpower, you're sad.
Yeah. Basically, when you don't have discipline.
Yes.
And it's true. When it comes to mental discipline, mental toughness, mental willpower, that is earned by making yourself do things that you don't want to do. That's it. Incrementally, until you're able to do things that others are not. Remember years ago, I was reading, and I've heard Cameron Hanes talk about this. You look at some of the best endurance racers in the world. For example, he ran the race with Truett, his son Truett, and you heard him on Rogan's podcast.
Throw him under the bus.
I think Truett got 90 miles or something on a 100-mile race or whatever, but he just didn't get those last bit.
It's 100 miles in like a 24-hour period or something like that.
And he was close, but he just didn't get it. And Cam was like, 90 miles is incredible, but it's not 100. So
that's an amazing feat. Most people will never run 100 miles or 90 miles.
Yeah.
But it's not 100.
Yeah. And what Cam was saying was that, Truett had the same physical ability as Cam. Like he's younger even, more capable than Cam.
He just set the world pull-up record.
He's
a beast.
What he doesn't have just yet is the same mental toughness that Cam has. And years ago, I was reading some articles on running and marathon runners. And it was some statistic that showed that runners over 35 years old, some 80 or 90% would finish races. Runners under 35, under 25 rarely could finish long races. Like they had the highest dropout rate. And you're like, well, why? Because their bodies are the toughest and the most they can regenerate and recover the best. Like their bodies are superior in fitness and so on to the 50-year-old that ran the same race. So how is the 50-year-old group winning? And the article went on to say that, and I heard Cam say this on Rogan's show, reiterating the same sentiment, that it takes mental toughness. And mental toughness, it takes a lifetime of losing someone you love to death, losing a loved one and overcoming that, getting disappointed by a job, overcoming that, dealing with someone that goes through cancer and suffers. It takes, what happens with these older people is they've been there, done that. They've had to forge a mental toughness to fight through things. And a lot of young people just haven't had it. They haven't had the hard times. They haven't had to develop that sort of toughness. And so when it gets hard, they're more likely to quit. Where the older people, men and women, are like, no, we go. And you can't explain why older athletes outperform young athletes. Of course, there's always usually the exception. The best in the world are the young and the mentally tough, right? Because they got both things. But in general, though, statistically, from a high level, older athletes are better endurance because they have the mental toughness to ignore their pain and keep moving, where young people don't. And that's, again, incrementally exercising discipline, telling yourself, I will not quit, and understanding that that pain is temporary and you're going to get through it. And you can come out the other side as a failure, or you can come out the other side as a winner. It might be just awful pain for the next 2 days, right? But it's like, next week, you're going to be a winner. You're going to have accomplished your goal. There's something really powerful about that. And a quitter can't figure that out, can never figure that out. So I think maintaining or building that, incremental mental toughness is critical to a successful life. But it translates into the mountains too. So you want to fuel your body. You want to take care of it. You want to provide yourself with all that nutrition, all that good, healthy food and low inflammation. We didn't even talk about the other things that I bring in terms of vitamins and minerals which I bring an assortment of those: CBD oil, fish oil, calcium, magnesium, other supplements I bring. Maybe we can talk about that on another show because we need to wrap this one up. But in general, you fuel your body, you take care of yourself, you exercise, you do all those things. And at the end of the day, you add that to incremental mental toughness by making yourself do things that you don't want to do. And before you know it, you're a real successful person in all facets of your life, you know? So anyway, I hope this was a useful podcast. If you guys got questions, shoot them our way. As usual, DM me on Instagram. I like comments on YouTube. That's really easy to follow up on if you leave a comment, and others can read those too because they're public. Look in our description field in our podcast for coupon codes and any general information. We'll put a list of the foods that we talked about today down there in the description field. And that's it. Stay gritty, folks.